Good afternoon. The theme I will speak about today deals with the capability to feed a world where inhabitants are increasing day by day. This year, the world population are estimated to have reached the 7.5 billion, and it will reach 9.3 billion by 2050. Most of these of the increase in population will take place in developing countries, mainly in Africa and Asia. That could be, we can assert that is good news, because it means that some relevant goals like the reduction of poverty, the decrease in extreme hunger, or the decrease of high child mortality rate has been reached, at least partially, and at least in some areas of the world. But the first question we should ask, speaking about this, the increase in population, is will we be able to feed so many people? If we consider that nowadays still almost 800 million people are suffering hunger, how will we feed so many people? The first concept I would introduce is the concept of food security. Food security exists when all people at all times have physical and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food that meets their dietary needs and food preference for an active and healthy life. This definition is, in my opinion, is very interesting because it deals with the availability of food, but also the access to food and some qualities like safety, healthy, and so on. We can, if we go back to the history of the availability of food and the population growth, we can consider that availability of food at global level has never been a problem in terms of food insecurity, because the availability of food has kept pace of population growth, mainly thanks to technological, and scientific development. In the graph, you can see that in the last 50 years, the food availability has increased per person by 20%. Moreover, the level of hunger in developing countries declined by 29% in the last since 2000. High level of hunger exist in several countries which have serious or alarming levels of hunger, mainly in Africa and in East Asia. We can assume that food insecurity is a problem of allocation of food, because we can say that the total amount of food, the availability of food is enough to satisfy the food demand. But we know that reallocate food by continents, among continents, is not the efficient answer. So the second concept I would introduce is the urbanization. Urbanization is a very interesting and controversial phenomenon. In 1950, the 2/3 of the world population lived in rural areas. But in 27, the 5% threshold of person living in urban areas was crossed, and by 2050, 2/3 of the world population will live in cities, and the main increase will take place in Asia and in Africa again. So it means that the world is becoming overcrowded, and in particular some areas will develop much more than other areas. So we should ask again the question, will we be able to feed adequately, according to the definition of food security, an increasing number of people living concentrated in urban areas and mainly in developing countries? I think that the magic formula for improving productivity, for improving food supply doesn't exist, and several different models can be proposed. But I think that an inclusive, a sustainable model is feasible, and I would concentrate on a specific actors, a group of actors which play a very relevant role in the global food system. They are small-scale food producers or smallholders. This is a very diversified group and with different definitions. According to FAO, they are 1.5 billion farmers working in 500 million small-scale farmers under 2 hectares. But why are they so important? They are important because they contribute to the world food production by around 70%, and they contribute mainly to the investment in agriculture. But quoting the Secretary General of the Network of West African Peasant and Agricultural Producers Organization, they are invisible or ignored in the global food market, in the global food system. And I think that several leverages can be used to increase the weight of smallholders and their efficiency of food production in the global food system. But I would concentrate on 3 drivers or aspects. First of all, land tenure. Secondly, the role of women. And third, the access to market. Land, as we know, is the fundamental resource for producing food. Without land, we cannot produce food, except for very innovative systems. But we are speaking about developing countries. But land tenure system is a group of rules that regulate who can manage, who can own land, for how long and under what conditions. And as you see in this picture, there are in developing countries there are several different land tenure systems coexist. The formal ones like international and national, and the traditional ones like religious or customary tenure system. But what is relevant in developing countries is that land rights are normally weak, and weak land rights affects land tenure, and and create tenure insecurity. Tenure insecurity creates the low level of land investment and poor management. Poor management causes the land degradation and low productivity, and this process results in food insecurity. Some results from our research in developing countries, in African countries, namely in Chad and in Sierra Leone, has shown that when farm own the plot or the land he or she cultivates, the access to the market is higher. And if the main output is food, and the farmer is a smallholders who produce partly for the family consumption and partly for the market, strengthening land rights can ensure steady supply for the local market and at the same time enhance food security. Second step, the second driver is the role of women. Women are, on average, 43% of the total agricultural labor force in developing countries. And some studies highlighted that when women own land, the food household expenditure are higher, and children are likely to be less severe undernourished. So, but in developing countries, the women have less rights in owning, managing, inheriting lands. And at the same time, they have women smallholders have lower access to market. Again, according to data of World Bank and data we have collected in East Chad, women can have a higher agricultural performance than men. And when the rights of women increases, the women can have an important role in the family and in the community. They can enhance their skills and their knowledge, and can have a role in decision making. Finally, the last point is access to market. As we told before, urbanization is a big challenge because a lot of people are living in the urban areas, and they will become net food consumers because the food production is mainly located in rural areas. So this is a big opportunity for smallholders that can provide food for this big concentrated demand for food in urban areas. But smallholders may have access to market and market information. But smallholders live in rural areas, and they have few information about market, and normally they sell production to intermediate and traders that on their side have information. So they sell the products at a lower price, first of all, and the smallholders alone have produce a small amount of food and has a small bargain power in comparison to intermediate and traders. So the access to local market is the first goal to be reached by smallholders. But they should organize, they should cooperate in order to provide food for the new increasing demand of citizens and the organized demand in supermarkets which ask for standardized products and big quantity. And secondly, the second level, the second goal, very ambitious goal, is that to merge local production to global market. And this goal should be reached by the agreement among farmers and the choice of specific market channel. An example could be fair trade. In conclusion, the urbanization, this new overcrowded world, need more food, and this food can be provided by several different sources. One very interesting and inclusive way is to include in the value chain the role of smallholders. But smallholders, at the same time, we need to strengthen the land rights, the rights of women, and stimulate cooperation and common effort of smallholders. Thank you.